I'm Brent Leary.
Paul Greenberg.
Yeah, we're the CRM players.
Okay, if you say so.
Well, wait a minute. We may not be because I don't see a comment.
Me either.
I don't see anything. I don't know. This is kind of worrisome.
Yeah, listen, it's literally the Rock of Gibraltar not being there anymore.
It is too. And I just got this that Brent Leary, I can't really read it, is live.
No,
So,
really, let me see.
oh, wait a
Oh,
minute.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, we're going to call the
Yeah.
show.
Thank God. Thank you, Sven. I am so glad you're there. That's Italian. Ciao, amici. Hello, friends. And he's
Don
right.
Amici.
Everyone should understand. Don Amici. I think Don would not appreciate the spelling of his last name.
He spelled it with ease, right?
Yeah, he was Ameche.
What do you mean we did the introduction twice? Huh?
I don't know. I have no idea. How do we do that?
Maybe the stream did something twice. I know I didn't do it twice.
Me either. Unless my short-term memory is that bad.
Saying my name once a day is pretty much a nuisance. Nuisance.
That's right.
A
nuisance.
Anyway, we are the CRM players. We're glad to be here. And we do have a guest later on.
Yes, we do. And a very interesting one, which we'll talk about later on.
You know what? It's been a long week.
Yeah.
At least
you more than me, but
it's been a long
more
week.
You more than me, but yes.
So I've been dragging, just trying to get things done. Kind of been dragging. But then something I saw earlier today gave me a jolt of information. Not information. A jolt of energy. Let's see. What is he saying here?
Huh.
Blame it on the stream.
It's always the best thing to do.
It's not our fault. So, but anyway, so I kind of been dragging a little bit, but then I saw something.
Okay.
See if I can show this. All right, yeah, there it is. So I saw something, and it gave me this jolt, like I was saying, and it came from the oddest place.
All right.
Alex Dayon, right?
Of course.
Salesforce.
Man I truly like.
I hadn't thought about him in a long time.
Still
but
there.
Somehow I was on Twitter, and you know how on the side it gives you like a set of folks that you might want to follow?
Yeah.
So he was one of those folks. So I was like, man, I haven't thought about him in a while. Let's see what he's posted, what he's talking about. And that's when I saw this.
Are you kidding? Wow. Go, Alex. Can you play it?
Well, it's Raspberry Beret. I know we can't, but he's just
the whole number.
The best cloud suit ever.
You're not kidding.
And that is Prince in the Raspberry Beret video wearing.
Thank you.
It is literally a cloud suit.
Judging from Salesforce's colors, the Prince Estate could literally sue for what they do. Alex, you may have made a mistake here.
No, yeah, it's true. Considering what they did to Mars Day, they're kind of like trying to get him. But anyway, that just gave me such a new appreciation for Alex and Salesforce that he knew about the cloud suit. I was like, oh, well, it gave me a little burst of energy.
I can see why. I mean, but the weird thing is, if we go and we look at Salesforce So no, Sven, we
No,
definitely don't.
not at all.
Sven, you have to realize you have so much goodwill when this thing starts. Like we literally depend on you. It's not like even, and when you do that, you lose a little bit of the goodwill at a time. 3 or 4 of those, and all that lovely goodwill you start with dissipates completely by the end of the show. So it's really not a good idea to talk about Rams jokes. Really, really bad. Even
By
in
the way,
other languages, it would be wrong.
I think this is a pretty new hat too. I've got.
Actually that's kind of a beauty in its own way. That's like
I
an
like it.
abstract, slightly abstract hat.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Oh wow! So whose hat is that? Who's it come from? The manufacturer.
I don't know. I bought it off of Fanatics.
Ah, of
So
course.
they usually have about 4 or 5 different, vendors they use.
Are there any hats left that you don't have?
Surprisingly, there's a lot because they do a lot of them, but I have quite a bit of them too. So
Well, you're up to what? 150?
yeah, definitely approaching, if not reaching 3 digits. There's a lot.
Wow.
There's
That's
a lot.
major.
But
That
anyway,
is major.
feeling revived, rejuvenated, thanks to Alex Dayon. Thank you, sir.
Alex, you're a great guy, and you proved it again.
And great taste in music.
Yes, you do.
All
And
right.
right. And I'd love to see someone wearing that now.
Nobody
Like,
could wear that. Not Prince. You don't want to try.
No,
to
it'd have
compare
to be a
yourself.
replica. First of all, it'd have to be a replica. Anyway.
I was going to say you don't want to compare yourself to Prince, and then of course he wrote "Nothing Compares to You." So
There
it
you
is.
go. So Alex already in your camp.
Yeah. So we had another what I consider to be a good. What do you call that thing again?
Even more joyous hour.
Yeah, that good stuff. Although
Some
it
of
went
it.
it ranged.
It's ranged from let's call it incredibly cheerful to kind of dark.
Yeah, and every time we tried to go up, it got pulled back down. It was really
Well,
interesting.
that's just thanks to me mostly. Well, I mean, I know you didn't want to place blame, but I'm willing to accept it. I was making it a little darker than it needed to be.
But it was still fun, good conversation.
Oh, and to be honest, I had fun making it dark.
Maybe a little too much fun.
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
know. But it was good. Once again, you want to put out the invitation for people to join us?
Okay, look, guys, gals, androids, cyber creatures, NFTs that move, GIFs, holograms,
Wow.
bots. You're all invited to come to our Even More Joyous Hour, aka the CRM Playaz Happy Hour. We just completed number 104, right, since April of 2020, and it's rolling along really well. It's always a lot of fun. It's very relaxing. You don't actually have to bring a beverage or have a beverage if you don't want any more. That requirement went away 2 years ago. But it's every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time for 1 hour. Every Monday and or Tuesday, look for me lamenting and complaining about how few registrants we have on my LinkedIn profile, and you will find a registration link. Or if you're interested and you happen to be watching today and you don't come normally, put it in a LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever you're watching from, comment, and I will make sure you get the registration link. But register, and then on the day of it, I'll send you the URL, which you can then log in with. It's so much fun. And even though I complain every week, we always have pretty much a full house. Ultimately, just people like torturing me, right? And it really, subject matter ranges from relatively deep, meaning we could be talking about CX and EX and things like we'll be talking about today.
Just
And
make sure He said CX and EX.
Right. And as Joe Pine called it, X
And it does mark
and
the spot.
X. And it does. And we might be talking about that. And then again, we might be talking about your first car, your walk-on music, battle between forms of bagel, your favorite restaurant, whatever. We just talk whatever comes to mind. Brent usually comes up with the funny topics that work. She usually makes it a happy place. I usually bring it down. My job is to bring it down. It's like
We have fun.
Keep it senior. Keep it
Would
venerable.
would it be considered what we do on that, like kibitzing? Is that what a kibitz
Yeah,
is?
oh God, yeah. That's exactly what kibitzing is.
All right.
Kibitzing means you're pretty much talking about whatever, whenever, and there's nothing really monumental about anything, and it doesn't necessarily have a memorable result either. That's kibitzing.
Then we kibitz.
Yes, we do. We
There it
kibitz.
is. All right. Okay. Now we're done with the kibitzing on that. Let's talk about things that are coming up in the very near future. Tuesday.
Right. Yeah.
May the 10th, right?
Yeah.
Losing track of time and stuff. So May the 10th, early start, 9 a.m. East Coast time. We are doing our second watch party of the year. SAP, Sapphire. Is it Sapphire now, or did they drop the now? Is it just Sapphire?
I've only seen it called Sapphire now. Sapphire currently. I think it's Sapphire 2022 was, I think.
What happened to the now?
It went to then.
It used to be Sapphire now. Now
it's Sapphire then. It's Sapphire then.
Sven, do you have any inside scoop on why the now got dropped from Sapphire now? Let us know. What's he got here?
He got that's Brian Solis's book on UX and
from last year,
UI and so on. Yeah, it's a very good book. Excellent book. Now Joe Pine is looking at it from a different perspective than that book. That book was more UI UX and design from that standpoint, where Joe is looking at the sum total of all experience and all experiences.
Right. And experiences that are meaningful and memorable enough to have an economic consequence to it.
Right. And he's talking about that was a great show, actually. Yeah. Joe is not only an engaging speaker, but he's really a good storyteller, besides having obviously very deep knowledge.
Oh, wait a minute. We got a
Mandeep.
Yeah, now went to then. That's
right.
So anyway, join us 9 a.m. Tuesday morning for the watch party for Sapphire. Do we have anybody lined up from SAP to join us after, or
not yet?
Not yet. Stay tuned.
That is hopefully on the way. We'll see if they're willing to do it.
And Sven says it was done just for us. Thanks. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Tell Christian Klein thank you very, very much for that decision.
Yeah.
We
and
really
if he
appreciate it.
Wants any other suggestions from us, you know where he can find us.
That's right. In fact, you can find us when he's our guest on the show.
That would be the very best place to find us. Excellent.
That's right.
All right. So that's Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Next week, next Thursday, a week from today, at this time, it's back to venerableness, and you know what that means.
Yes, you and somebody else as guests of the Playaz.
It's going to be a great one, because in addition to our usual venerable, he's like the Paul Lynde of venerable. I don't know if he's going to be called that or not.
He probably has no idea who that is.
Oh, he knows who Paul Lynde is.
Well, wait, which one are we talking about?
Wow. Talk about a potential for venerableness at some point.
There he is.
Oh, man. That would be awesome.
You know what? Brian, be prepared to be on one of the Venerables episodes.
And we will explain what that means
Yes,
because Steve Gilmore, the one and only Steve Gilmore, the creator of the
who's on?
Gilmore Gang,
That's right.
and did all stuff from producing like Rolling Stones records to working with the Fire Sign
To the
theater group.
Who.
Yeah, the Who, whatever. So he's our regular venerable. So we do the venerableness show once a quarter. Steve is always on it. We cannot do it without the venerable Steve Gilmore.
That's
But
right.
in addition to the venerable Steve Gilmore, we also bring on special new quarterly venerable people. And would you like to share the news as to who will be joining us next week on the venerableness episode?
So we are actually bringing someone out of retirement to do this show, right? He is literally one of the best known influencers on the enterprise side, the ERP side. He is one of the most publicly edgy of those influencers, willing to say what he has to say. He also is the founder and creator, co-creator and co-founder of Diginomica, and was the first CEO until he retired. And his name is, if you don't know by now, Dennis Howlett. Now, I will tell you, between me as a venerable, Dennis is a venerable, and Steve is a venerable, that is the crotchety venerable program.
Man,
That is going to be the most crotchety venerable program in the history of venerableness.
I'm telling you. Can we nickname him Dangerous Den Howlett for that show so that we can kind of build it up a little bit?
I'm sure he'll go with it. If he doesn't, we'll hear about it. So,
oh man, mark your calendars. I'm going to be on the show, just sitting back and taking it all in.
and
It's going to be a fun
butt
one.
off.
Oh, I'm
laughing
going
your
to be
butt off to a bunch of
laughing
these
hysterically.
crotchety people.
All right, so
We'll sit there and hit each other with our canes.
oh man, can we get some virtual way to do that? That'd be awesome.
There's got to be.
All right, so we got watch party May the 10th, 9 a.m. Venerableness May the 12th, 3 p.m. all East Coast. And then we just confirmed, and I hope it stays confirmed, leading up to Pega World, Pega's big user conference. I think for the third year in a row. Is it
Yeah.
the third or at least the second?
Yep.
All right, we'll go with third. For the third year in a row on May the 17th, this is a special day and time, Tuesday, May 17th, 1 p.m. East Coast time, the one and only Alan Treffler, CEO and founder of Pega World.
Pegasus Systems.
Pegasus.
Yeah. Doesn't do anything but the conference ever.
Alan Treffler will be giving us a few good minutes. See how I tied that in?
Yeah, not bad.
All right.
Woo.
Alan
Not
Treffler
bad.
will be joining us for an hour. And if you know anything about Alan, you know that he seldom cuts his words off. He usually gives it to us the way he sees it. And that's why we love him being a part of the show.
He's an awesome guest, man. He is so much fun to be a guest. He has a good sense of humor too. That's the other side.
Yes. So that's the next couple weeks. Lots of good stuff. Lots of good folks coming on. And now, for this Thursday, I will turn it over to the venerable Paul Greenberg for the introduction of today's guest.
So, just to be clear, our guest today is far too young to be venerable. Far too young. She's got 35, 40 years till she gets to venerable age. That said, in that young life that she has had, she has become an astonishing influencer. She has made her name known, not just in the world of employee engagement, HR, from the standpoint of just the big picture kind of thought leadership that you get from a lot of those influencers, but you also the practical. One of the things when I met her that blew me away was her playbooks, right? She has playbooks for how to go about doing every single thing she talks to. Plus, she has a highly successful podcast. She has a ongoing business. We met her several years ago because she sits on the board of advisors of, if you remember, the Professional Collegiate League, which was attempting to battle the NCAA on basketball. Her name, Katrina Ghazarian. She's one of my favorite people. And the other thing she has got going, her sense of humor. Just think of this before you bring her on. Her tagline says Katrina Ghazarian voted funniest in the 5th grade. And she's retained that title past even post grad. So
That's impressive.
with that, Brent, bring her on. And there she is.
Welcome.
Hey there.
Our new TikTok star, I've noticed.
Tell us a
lately.
joke. We want a joke right now. Right now.
That's right. You got 2
Okay,
seconds to come
okay.
up with something funny.
Why is Tigger always dirty?
Okay, why?
Because he plays with poo.
Hey, Vay, you literally have to be a millennial. for
Well,
that
you
one.
have lost your title.
That's right. You made it to the 6th grade, but
Hey, was that
junior high school did you
worse than McHale's Navy? Can I get rid of McHale's Navy at this point?
No, because that was just incredibly generational.
I mean, listen, I didn't say I was funniest at telling jokes. I'm like physically funny.
Oh, you do physical, like sketch comedy? Is that what we're talking about? Or
I don't know. I just think
do
sometimes
like-
my face is just funny.
Do you like trip and fall and things like that?
Not on purpose.
All right.
well,
so
anyway, welcome to the show. Thanks for
Yes.
making time.
this is
Thanks,
the
guys.
first appearance. This is actually a kind of a big show for us too, because we've historically always focused on CRM, CX, customer engagement, customer facing things, but more and more we're seeing, and we are seeing this a lot these days. People are tying employee engagement to customer engagement, and as Joe Pine called it, it's all one big X basically, and he's right. So, and you are, to me, one of the, well, not just one of the leading thinkers when it comes to employee engagement, but you're also one of the most attuned to the world as it's, let's say, realigning. So why don't you start by just giving us a sense of how you define employee engagement and what you see as some of the issues companies might have with it, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, employee engagement is essentially employees care about the work they're doing. They're committed to the mission of the organization. They're willing to kind of stretch outside of their normal boundaries in order to, move that needle forward on the mission. They work together and they collaborate, and there's transparency all the way, at all levels, from entry level to, C-suites. That to me is what an engaged culture looks like. They're able to solve problems, with one another without, requiring so much mediation. When they have concerns, they're willing to speak up about them. This is all engagement. And I can tell you what's not engagement, which, we're seeing this trend in the Great Resignation, as they're calling it, in, benefits and pay and flexibility. And, it's not, employee engagement is not perks and benefits. Engagement is how an employee feels about the organization that they work for. I think in terms of what organizations aren't doing or what they're not really understanding is a lot of organizations don't know how to collect data, benchmark data, or even how to use data to create initiatives around engagement. They're not really putting a lot of effort, as say they would, marketing to their customers or servicing their customers, they're not putting nearly enough effort into understanding their employees and what it will take for an employee to be engaged with their organization.
So if you're looking at, let's say, just any typical company that has issues, whatever they may be specifically, how do you tell them to even start thinking about that, given that they still have to concern themselves, obviously, with their customer engagement too? What do you tell them to start doing, like the first things they're supposed to do?
I think one of the first most important things an organization can do is to administer a climate survey. And the climate survey should be made up of certain questions about how an employee feels about leadership, communication, retention, compensation, and benefits. And I think some of those like really key engagement questions will kind of revolve around, do I feel valued? Do I know what my responsibilities are? Do I understand my contribution to the mission at large? Would I leave a position for more money? Would I refer my family and friends to work for the organization? There are some key questions that really show you, what the metric or what the benchmark of engagement looks like for employees.
So here's the thing. One thing we know from, I hate to say this, when we know from the customer side, when they get surveys and look at that, a reasonable number of them, let's say, don't tell the truth. They just say what they think they're supposed to say and be done with it. Does that happen on the employee side too? And if so, how do you even, I'm assuming it does, because human beings are human beings and they sometimes respond in, let's say, not exactly the way we would like them to, but how do you allow for that?
Well, I think number one, the company needs to be, or, the leadership who wants to do a project like this really needs to be aware of, do we have a trusting organization? Because if employees feel like they don't trust leadership or they don't trust the HR department, then you're right. They're not really going to be honest because they have fear of retaliation. And so, that's kind of the benefit of working with a third-party company, because it does allow for employees to be really honest and truthful about how they feel when they know that the leadership team won't know what their individual response was. So I think either using a third party or just ensuring the employees that there would be no retaliation. So it's, why are we doing it? What are we going to do about the information that we collect? And you are safe for telling the truth.
Okay. Thank you.
So it seems like all this year, probably even before that, there's been these ongoing discussions, conversations, debates, I don't know, about how important EX is to CX or to the success of CX. So as you talk to your clients and you get a chance to, do all the industry stuff around kind of the EX part, how are companies viewing EX in the context of CX? Are they saying if we solve EX, then we're solving CX? Are they viewing it as more disconnected than that? What are you seeing out there? And how do you think about it too?
I think idealistically, they do believe, the happy employees equals happy customers equation. It's funny because Paul will say, "Oh, everybody's saying that. I don't think that's true." And I think he forgot he had me write an entire article for his blog not too long ago where
Right.
literally the title was "Happy Employees Equals Happy Customers."
Yeah, but you qualified it. I didn't forget.
So I think, I don't think it's as direct as a lot of people believe it to be in terms of, well, as long as our employees are happy, no matter what, then we're going to have happy customers. Because there are so many other, if your product sucks, then there's nothing that an employee can do about
Exactly.
that, So with that aside, then yes, I do believe that that's the case, because when employees are engaged with their work, which means they're out of like survival mode, they're on the like next level of the pyramid, they just become so creative and so dedicated that they may not directly be able in that instance to help the customer, but creatively, they'll be able to solve much bigger problems in an indirect way. And I remember an example that I read about was at Zappos, and I believe it was, or I read it in the book that Tony Hsieh wrote, but it was basically the person, or it was Google. It was the early days of Google, where they had it on a wall, like, we can't solve this problem. If anybody's willing to solve it, please feel free and go ahead. And it was somebody from a completely other department that just saw the problem from a different perspective, went home for the weekend and brought back a solution that ended up changing Google forever. And so it may not be a direct response to a customer right then and there, but when employees are engaged, they're part of what I like to call it, they're like the matrix, right? They're part of the network. And so they're just much more creative, and they're willing to look at things from their own perspective and willing to provide solutions for it. When they're disengaged, they're saying things like, well, that's not my job. And because they're disconnected from the network, essentially. So I do believe that to be true.
I mean, look, I agree with you. I think employee engagement is a major component of making customers happy, and empowering those employees is the way you get them engaged too. I remember there was a period, even though it didn't ultimately succeed just because of the scope of it, IBM was deciding they were a social business. And this was years ago. And they decided to empower all their employees, which were by 400,000 or something like that. And they did it like 50,000 at a time. But the problem was, you try to turn that kind of ship. I mean, it's almost impossible. It's so big. And eventually it just failed. But the 50,000 employees were empowered to, they had a lot more freedom before they had to go to a manager, basically, to do whatever it is they had to do to work with customers. Where I always inject is, and it kind of goes to your point about shitty product, I always inject at the level of, and it actually happened to me, which is one of the reasons I realized that actually I wasn't wrong, was, here, the story was, I was buying from Best Buy, and I needed something literally to come when it said it would come. And if it didn't come, I needed to find it somewhere else, because by this was on a Friday, and I had to have it in full operation by Monday morning. So it said it would come Friday, and this was Thursday, and I bought it, and then I got a notification, okay, it'll be there Monday. And I called them and said, wait a minute, you need to, I needed Friday. I said, look, it's at the store. I just thought it would be easier to get it shipped because I was so busy, but I'll go get it at the store. They said, oh, you can't do that. I said, why not? They said, well, your order's shipped. I said, no, it's not. It said it's being packed, right? That's not shipped. They said, well, our systems don't talk to each other, right? So what our inventory online and our inventory at the store are two different systems. They don't talk to each other. So we can't do that, because ultimately we might duplicate the order and blah, blah, blah. I said, that's nuts. I said, so what you're basically telling me is I should go to the store, buy it, then get the thing from you, return it, right, and get refunded. That's it. And they said, yeah. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll buy it from somewhere else, right? And then I'll get yours and get refunded. And that's what I did. But I found a store. I had to travel like 35 miles to get it, but I did. But the fact the systems wouldn't talk, and here's the deal. Every employee I talked to along the way was great. It wasn't a single, I loved everyone. And basically my thing was, well, you know what? I'm not blaming you. You're a great person. I think you're really doing a good job here, but your system sucks, so I'm not going to deal with you anymore. So that's what I mean. It's just, there's the intervening systems. If they don't work, then you can have the happiest employee in the world. And the only thing that will ultimately happen is the customer won't blame the employee, right? That's all that really the benefit will turn out to be. But you have to have systems that work too. And that's really the only point. But
Mhm.
again, shitty product, shitty systems not working, then that's what happens. So that's
I got
just to clarify.
an old example, kind of came about from what Katrina said. I was going to say, remember when, but none of us
Oh,
should
yeah.
remember this.
That
At least
makes you
not
venerable
firsthand.
if you do that.
All right. Thomas Edison.
Oh God, yeah. Now I
know.
remember.
Yeah. My boy Tom. So I keep wanting to say, remember when he put up
I don't.
this thing to his employees?
Hey,
They had
George,
this-
Paul McCartney. Remember when you were in the Beatles? Right.
They had this tough engineering issue that they're trying to solve, and he couldn't solve it. So he put up $50,000 for the first employee who could solve this problem. He forgot Nikola Tesla was one of his employees. So this, Nikola, like the smartest dude, even smarter than Tommy, I think, solved it. He spent all this time and effort, solved it, presented it to Edison, and he was like, wow, you actually got this thing to work. That's great. And Tesla said, where's my money? I'm sure he might not have said it just like that. I wasn't there, but something to the effect. And Edison said, I was just joking about the 50 grand, man.
Oh,
Did you really think I was going to give you that amount of money to solve this? Get out of here. So the employee wasn't very happy, but the solution was great for potential customers. So there's a case where a great customer experience was not equated to a great employee experience.
Well, I mean, it was inverse. It was,
Yes.
I mean, he did it thinking he was going to make money, obviously. So I would say prior to that, it was happy employee. I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to get paid a bunch of money to do it. Didn't get paid. So now the engagement is shitty.
Mm-hmm. Down the tubes.
The end result is he was not happy.
Right.
And he left the company, partnered with Westinghouse, made AC current better than the DC current. Anyways, a long story.
It all worked out in the end for everybody.
We're all happy about it.
That's right. That's right. That's why we can do these broadcasts. So how did you go from basically the idea of a career in sports to Gameday HR?
Well, I failed at the career in sports.
Well,
I was on my way of getting a position with the University of Hawaii as their director of basketball operations. Nice. It was a really great opportunity because at the time I had built a relationship with Joe Dumars, who at that time was the director of operations for the Pistons. Met him without knowing he was him. And
really?
Oh yeah.
You didn't know later. He was a bad boy?
I didn't. This is not my generation, you know?
Oh,
and so
right. Yeah, old man.
And so the story is a friend of mine who I worked with. It was very apparent to everyone I meet right away that basketball is like my jam. And I mean, when I was working at the bank, as soon as we closed those doors, if there was a Lakers game on, I would change like the TV for customers. I would change it to the game so we could watch it while we were closing up the branch. And a coworker of mine, he had said like, oh, a friend that I used to play with, like in college, I don't know, some tournaments, he's going to be at this game. It was the Lakers and the Pistons. He's giving us some post-game passes. I'm like, sure, why not? So I go to the game and then we have our little passes and we go down. Basically, the post-game is the tunnel where the guest team typically runs out of. So we go down there and he's like, oh, this is my friend Joe. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for the passes, you know? And so I'm not like a big autograph or picture person. So, you know, I just like talking to people, if anything. so I just saw this guy who gave us these post, game passes, just standing by himself. And I felt really bad because I felt like he gave us these tickets. And so I go up to him and I'm like, so what do you do? I was maybe 21 at the time. And he's like, oh, I work in operations for the Pistons. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And so I'm like talking to him. He's like, what do you do? And what do you want to do? I'm like, I would love to have my own community center one day. I would love to own an NBA team one day. And we're just like kind of having this conversation. He was like, a community center. He's like, okay. And he gave me his card and he was like, I'd like to talk to you about that from, later on. I'm like, okay, cool. Wow. Took his card, gave him my phone number. I walk with my friends and they're like, did you give him your phone number? I'm like, yeah. And I didn't really question it. I have his card. I go to my dad's and he's like, how was the game? And I was like, it was great, blah, blah. He's like, who gave you the passes? I was like, Joe Dumars. He was like, what? And so I was like, who is he? And he was like, what do you mean, who is he? And, my dad's like gassed up and he's like looking him up online and has me like read it. I'm like, oh, he's like, you just went and talked to Joe Dumars and gave him your phone number. Like, well, he's just a normal guy. Even knowing what I know now, he's just a human being to me. I don't put crowns on anybody, And so, from there, we really established a friendship. He came back. They played against the Clippers. He had tickets in the box office for me and told me to bring 3 friends. I brought he was the head coach that I was coaching for at the time. I brought him and 2 other friends. He took us to dinner, just like the 5 of us. And, we got to have a great conversation. And then he said they were going to be in Chicago. So my coaching partner and I flew out to Chicago, got to see the Lakers and the Bulls, as well as the Pistons and the Bulls. Jeez. Took a train down to Detroit. He picked us up in his like Range Rover. Showed me the community center. He has 2 community centers in Detroit called the Joe Dumars Field Houses. And he showed them to me. And he was just such a wonderful human being. He's still the same guy that I met without knowing who he was or what he had accomplished in his career. And so
that's cool.
I started like doing some things with them, but then it became apparent I needed to have my 4-year degree to work for the NBA. And so I went back to school. It was time for me to transfer I went to community college. It was time for me to transfer to university. I made some connections all those years. The head coach asked me to come on as a director of operations. I would get a full ride working for that. And then I got pregnant. The end.
That's a cool story.
It was a wonderful time. I'm always thankful for that time. And I still I don't have the opportunity to talk to Joe since he left, but I see, when I hear his name, it's always a positive feeling I get in my heart when I hear about him.
So how do you end up in HR?
So I always joke around, like no one dreams of being in HR as a little kid, it's just something you kind of fall into essentially. But I started working as a recruiter and I was really good at it. I really felt, I don't know, I was just good at matching the right people with the right organizations. And so I was only working for a third-party recruiter for a few months when a client poached me, essentially offered me a full-time job, come recruit for all our portfolio companies. It was less about sales. When you're in third-party recruiting, it's mostly sales, I would say, than it is actually recruiting. And so I started to work for them, and then just realized very quickly that they needed help on the documentation and the employee kind of performance management. So I really just dove right into understanding the rules, employment laws, the rules, but also I think my experience being a basketball coach and a basketball official for about 5 years, I just like people. I really like to know people and I like to know who they are and what drives them and what hurts them. And, what does the body language really mean, even though the words are coming out of their mouth differently. And so I think HR was a very easy transition for me from my past experience, because I got to, like an official, I get to like manage people, different personalities, emotionally manage them in a certain way. Like recruiting, I get to know who's going to be successful in what position with what organization. And and then the teaching aspect of coaching is just, how do I get everyone to buy into what I'm saying? And if I felt like if I could do that with 15 or 16 teenage, girls in high school going through puberty, I could do it anywhere.
I'd say so.
So one of the things that when I first met you that really impressed me was the fact that you were doing all the playbooks in particular. I mean, that good luck. I mean, I see a lot of, and I mentioned this in the intro a little bit, but I see a lot of thought leadership out there, which are big idea thought leadership, which are legitimate ideas. I mean, they're really important and you need to have them. I'm not denigrating them in any way, but one of the things that has historically tended to lack have been, well, okay, these are great ideas. How do you execute? Now, the thing that I saw from you was you were building these execution plans, basically, and they were very specific. I mean, this was not a hi, make your employees happy. That wasn't the way you described it, right? You would actually go through, you can do this, or if that's not exactly how you want to take it, take this and this and move it this, and this. I mean, you had, effectively branching playbooks for almost everything that you said and did. So what kind of work goes into developing those playbooks? And could you give an example so that the people listening in can understand what a playbook, what one of your playbooks is, basically? So give them like a specific example and how to use these ideas to, execute.
Yeah, I think for the inspiration behind this is, there's a lot of people talking about the what, it's the what of a good company culture. Why is it important? And that's not just culture, it's really in any industry. And everybody, like you said, has these big ideas, but I don't think they've ever actually executed those ideas. I think they're kind of taking information from different places and putting it all together. And so I think my own experience in coaching, really, I mean, when you talk about a playbook, that's what you call, your coaching book. So I didn't, even as a coach, I didn't, I always laugh at when I go to games, whether I was a ref or a fan, whatever, and like you just hear the coach like yelling at their team, like, play better defense or pass better. And, and I'm like, that's not going to work. You have to tell them what to do. Like, where do they put their feet? Where do they stand? Where do they pass? How do they pass? And so I remember one time as an official, this coach just was getting mutilated on a full court press. And he's just yelling at his kids. I believe I was doing a boys game. And I finally went up to him. I'm like, it's probably time to draw up another play, don't you think? Because this one's not working. So I kind of took that into the way I approached HR. So it wasn't like, well, I feel like we should do these things, but here's how to do it. And here's the data to prove why this is important. And so I think the playbook that really kind of positioned me, as you would say, as a thought leader, was the climate survey playbook on increasing engagement. And so it really is like a step-by-step guide on how to create a climate survey, not just like to do it, but what programs you could use to do it and what the questions need to say. And then not just the questions, but how they need to be stated and what rankings you should use. And then what do you do with the data afterward? And then how do you present the data to the company? And then how do you put initiatives behind these things? And not just how to put initiatives together, but how many you should do at one time, and then when do you retake the data. And so it was really important because I had done it with plenty of companies. I basically had a proven concept, and I wanted to share it in a different way. I didn't want to just talk about culture. I wanted to show people the how part about culture and the transactional side of benchmarking your data and then building initiatives around improving, the metrics. So that, I would say, that playbook is the most important. But I mean, at this point, I have pretty much a playbook for every, culture, HR, and talent function you could think of. I mean, it's really a operational standard. Oh my gosh, SOP, standardized
Standard operating procedure.
That, yeah. So it's really that, and I had to do that because I have a team who I needed to share the knowledge with, because I couldn't do it all on my own anymore.
I got a question. You mentioned, I think you mentioned, I've been having so many conversations.
It was that other girl.
The Great Resignation. What's been the most effective way you've seen companies handle this situation?
Do nothing.
Really? Do tell.
Don't do anything. So I love the Great Resignation, and I hate it all at the same time. The reason why I don't like it is when people start blaming, or they start trying to choose who's to blame in the Great Resignation. It's the employee's fault. No, it's the employer's fault. No, it's technology's fault. No, it's the president's fault. It's just like, it's everyone's fault. So that I don't like. That. What I love about the Great Resignation, and I know Paul knows this about me, is really what the Great Resignation is. It's not about people quitting their jobs. The Great Resignation is a global transition of values. So we go through this pandemic. Not a single one of us has come out of it unchanged. We're all very different than 2 years ago when we met. Like, 3 of us met literally like before we got shut down. Right. We've all changed. And so when you have the humans behind, the business leaders or organizations who don't know who they are anymore and don't know what they want, and you have professionals who don't know who they are and they don't know what they want, you have the Great Resignation, because everyone's trying to figure out, who are they now? Who am I and what do I want? So when I say do nothing, it's really what I mean is find out who you are and what you want before you make all of these decisions. And so organizations get themselves in a situation when they try to overhaul any part of their business because they don't really know that that's going to work. You all have seen it in technology, and even something as surface as these big tech companies at the beginning of the pandemic saying work from home forever. Well, guess what? Now they're trying to bring people back. And when they said that before, I'm like, why would they say that? They don't even know what's going to happen. Why put yourself in that position, for marketing? That's stupid. And so the Great Resignation to me is, before you do anything, before you launch any initiatives, before you even look for another job, see if you can find out a little more about yourself. Like this new version of Brent and this new version of Paul and this new version of Katrina. Find out more about yourself and what you want and who are you and what's your contribution, because it's very likely, and the studies have showed, that you may think finding another job is going to make you happier, but studies show that that's not the case. In fact, the last study that I read, 40% of people who left their job are already looking for another job within the first couple of months.
Wow.
So basically your job may not be your problem. It might be your perspective, or it might be you're disconnected from yourself, and you just need to ask yourself, who am I? What are my values? And can I connect those values to the position that I'm in now? And if not, then start having that conversation with your employer and see what, because it's very likely your employer also is going through this discovery of who are they as a person, and then who are we as an organization. So I think the Great Resignation, the blaming and the dehumanizing of employees and employers, don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't think it does it just causes distress. It causes people who run businesses to not want to run a business anymore. It causes employees a lot of anger and distress. I don't like that part of it, but I love the fact that people are asking themselves these big questions now.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I just want to ask one quick. Is the new version of Paul Greenberg a Red Sox fan?
No, I found out I was venerable. That's the new version. Yeah, it's not my favorite result, but nonetheless, I'm going to quit the Playaz now and go find some other job.
You hate your boss, aka yourself.
Yeah, I do.
I would love to know about the both of you. Like, what has been one thing that you discovered about yourself over the last couple of years that you were surprised about?
Wow. Well, really surprised about, not a whole lot, somewhat surprised about, was I'm not as ADHD as I thought I was. Well, it's kind of true. I mean, it's like I have a million projects in my head all the time, but I managed. Actually, part of it, and part of the reason that became the case, was because Brent and I actually stabilized this show. We used to do it ad hoc, really. Our basic show planning was Brent would drop a line on any given day and say, "Hey, you want to do an episode of the Playaz today?" And I say, "Yeah." And he'd go, I'd say, "What do you want to do it about?" And he'd say, "Well, I was thinking about this." I said, "Okay, let me go see if we can find a guest." And then we go find a guest, and then we do it. But then Brent figured, and he's right, we should do it on a single day and a single time, and that stabilized it, and it actually made a gigantic difference just to the show's growth and evolution and so on. But it also allowed me to focus in on something in particular, and then I had a number of other things I had to begin wrapping up, because of the semi-retirement, the retirement semi-retirement thing. It was as joking as it always has been, and nobody's ever believed that I would retire. I've always believed I would, right? So, and ultimately that's the only one who has to believe it, right? So, but it actually gave me a very strong focus. And if the pandemic hadn't happened, none of that would have happened. I would have just gone from project to project. Again, it's not like it hurt me. It didn't really hurt me a great deal. It's just that this allowed me a much greater level of concentration on things. Look, when I wrote CRM Speed of Light, it's an 800-page book, and there's a lot of concentration necessary when you're writing a book that size. Yeah. So not like I couldn't concentrate, but I learned to separate signal from noise and then concentrate on signal, so to speak. Or even, as I keep advocating on a big public scale, signal from signal, and figure out which signal is more appropriate for me. That was a big one.
What about you, Brent?
I'll leave it to you.
I was hoping by the time you finished, I would have had
That's
something
why I was
in
talking
mind.
as long. That's why I was talking so long. I was hoping you'd get past that. I was covering for you.
Well, one thing I think I realized, because it's been almost 2.5 years since I stepped on a plane. And I would have thought I'd be, chomping at the bit to get back out there at this point. But I've realized I'm pretty comfortable where I am. Not to say that it would be nice to get out there again, but when you travel as much as all of us have before the pandemic, you forget what it's like to not have to run around, and you have time to do more things. Yeah, because you don't have to spend 30 to 40% of your time trying to get from one place to the next. So I've just grown a real appreciation for that.
It's good. Thanks for sharing.
We're going to throw the last question for the show today is, we'll throw that question right back at you.
Oh, okay. I think one of the biggest things I learned about myself is um I think I've always considered myself to be like a hard charger. Like determined and aggressive and um terse and brash. I think what I realized, especially like doing the podcast, and being in positions where I didn't really need to be that way, I realized I was just wearing these labels that I think people kind of put on me all of those years.
Wow.
And so I'm at where I felt like where I was always kind of described as like really assertive. I realized that I'm only assertive when I have to be. I don't prefer to be assertive. I prefer, like, just tell me what to do sometimes, and I'm like that personally in my personal life. I just like whatever you want to do, it's fine with me, where I'm not like that obviously in business. So I think I learned that these labels, that I think, whether it's a personality assessment that you take or it's how people describe you in a certain setting, we as humans are so much more fluid than we think we are.
Amen.
And we move through these personality kind of characteristics in many different situations. So I think learning that I don't have to adhere to what people think I am, and I can just be me, and I could just be, really. I don't have to do anything. I think that was a
Yeah.
big learning point for me.
All right. So I guess to close, so how do people get a hold of you?
Well, I am the only Katrina Ghazarian in the world, believe it or not. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at Kat Ghazarian. I'm on TikTok now. You really had to pull some teeth to get me on there. I'll tell you that. You can email me, KatrinaG@GamedayHR.com. I'm pretty. You can literally just put my name in, and only my stuff will pop up.
What about the
If you see
podcast?
if you see my MySpace stuff, just roll on through
Wow.
that.
Wow. Wait, you did that when you were like 11?
I was like 16 maybe.
Mhm.
So the podcast, it's actually, I had enjoyed doing the podcast so much that I put it on pause. And the reason why I did that is because I was doing the podcast just to do it because I really enjoyed the conversations, but I really want to do it at this point like 100%. I want to go in studio with camera, in person if possible. So it's currently on hiatus. If you want to listen to past episodes, you can go to the HR Sucks podcast or the valuesinvino.com for the second kind of version. Paul is on that one. You can still listen to all the episodes on Apple, it's on Spotify, but you're not going to see any new episodes for a while because I really want to develop kind of a full scale show out of it.
Oh, well, I
Cool.
guess hopefully we'll all have more to say about that at some point soon.
Yeah. Thanks guys for having me.
Oh, it's awesome.
Wait a
of
minute.
course.
Do we ask the inevitable question?
Ooh.
Yeah, well, this I already know the answer, but yes, we still have to.
Well, is the answer one that we'll be okay with?
Yeah. It is.
Is it appropriate? Are you worried about my inappropriateness?
No.
Oh.
It just depends on when you hear the question, then you'll wonder about appropriate or inappropriate.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really is this is a straight hardcore context question.
Ooh,
So,
okay. Am I ready? I don't know. Okay.
It sounds like you are. So,
yeah.
do you have a favorite NFL team?
No.
All right, we're good.
However,
Oh,
I am in Los Angeles.
oh,
Wait.
So, the LA Rams, I mean, I am an LA girl, so if I have to choose one team, but I also know the owner of the Chargers, that's a tough one. It's whoever's going to give me like the best seats.
Do you see
at Brent's
what's
hat.
on my hat?
Oh yeah, I thought you were a Raiders fan.
No, oh my God! You almost blew yourself off the show for good.
I'm just.
You almost gave an answer worse than the answer we knew you wouldn't give.
I'm just.
We used to
kidding.
have we literally used to only have one wrong answer, which was Patriots, right? That's the only answer that gets you never invited back. But I think you just created the second one.
I'm just kidding. I knew you were a Rams fan, Brent.
I don't know. You're not the funniest fifth grader anymore. Sorry.
I'm just a fifth grader.
That's when you were voting. Yeah. Yeah. You might not make it to sixth grade after that answer. All
It
right.
was literally wow. Oof.
Well, despite that last debacle, it's been a real pleasure having you.
It's awesome.
You too, guys. I hope I get to see you again soon.
Well, unless you will actually
Yeah, we will. In
in
June.
mid June.
Yeah,
we
that's
will
right.
see
Brent's
you.
gonna be.
Yeah, we're
You
doing.
guys are going together.
Brent and I are doing. For those of you who are wondering what the hell we're talking about,
Like
Brent
me.
and I are doing 3 live in conference episodes of CRM Playaz at the Verint Engage Conference, June 13th through 16th, although it's really the 13th through the 15th. Everyone's leaving the 16th. And Katrina, as part of the Verint Influencer Program, is coming there, and we will see her there live too.
Yeah. See, Brent.
would be
We're
awesome.
gonna be the 3 musketeers over there.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, just don't come in wearing
With-
Raiders gear or anything like that.
I'll just be
Okay.
wearing my. I have only one Giants T-shirt, and that's it for Giants gear.
I thought you were
All
going
my
to
other
say
gear.
you have a giant T-shirt.
No. I have one
Wow.
T-shirt, which was the last time. It was from. I've had it, as you can probably guess, for a decade, meaning the last time they won the Super Bowl,
Mm,
right? So, and beyond that, it's all Yankees. All
Okay.
Yankees.
I'll wear my
Wow.
Dodgers gear.
Oh, you can. I don't hate the Dodgers. They're just Dodgers. My father
right.
hated them for leaving Brooklyn,
Yeah.
but that died with them leaving Brooklyn. For me, I couldn't have cared less.
What was that, like 64 years at this point?
Yeah, as far as I was concerned, when they left Brooklyn, good riddance. I was a Yankees fan then too. Who needed the Dodgers or the New York Giants?
All right.
Go away, trivial teams.
And on
That's
that
the way we used to think of it.
cheery note,
Yeah.
thanks for everybody joining us today. And on behalf of Katrina Ghazarian, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
That's Minnie.
I love that
We'll-
dog. Oh God,
we'll see ya.
dog.
See ya.
On Tuesday morning. See ya.